Hi there, Reject Nation. I'm Greg Alba.
And I'm John Humphrey.
Listen, guys, one of our top reward tiers at our Patreon page is whatever video you request, we must definitely do and put up on the YouTube. Today comes from a man named Eric Horseman, who has requested from watchmojo.com top 10 best horror movies of 2018. I've seen all 50. Let's do this.
Let's do it.
Are we in a golden age of horror? Welcome to watchmojo.com, and today we're counting down our picks for the top 10 best horror films of 2018. Before we begin, we publish new content every day.
Honorable mention.
Be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. For this list, we're taking a look at movies released in 2018 that fall under the umbrella of horror, judging them on their intensity, originality, and overall impact.
I had a series of visions.
People keep calling Mandy a horror movie, is it?
After each one
I wouldn't say straight up, but I would say horror is definitely one of its genres.
Is it?
I would put it like second or third on the IMDb.
Upgrade.
Something that would enable you to walk again.
That's not an action movie. I mean a horror movie.
Yeah,
it's not. Like, at all.
I would say there's horror in it, but it would be like the fourth genre.
It's not a genre to me.
Considering the recent breakthroughs we've made with robotic limbs. In Upgrade, director Lee Winnell takes this setup and incorporates a body horror twist. Logan Marshall Green shines as a recently paralyzed man who's given a new lease on life upon receiving a computer chip implant, sending him on a mission to avenge his murdered wife.
I need your permission to operate independently. Thank you.
Can't wait to watch this again.
Upgrade has the humor and badass action you'd find in RoboCop, but its AI character also brings a sense of unpredictable terror to the equation that recalls HAL 9000.
You know what this means, Greg.
I'm not finished yet.
Number 9, Unsane.
I heard this was great.
Claire Foy had a phenomenal year in 2018, winning a Primetime Emmy for The Crown and earning widespread praise for her supporting role in First Man. She gave one of her most underrated performances in this psychological horror story, which director Steven Soderbergh boldly shot on an iPhone. As Sawyer, Foy plays a troubled woman who only grows more distressed when she's inexplicably imprisoned in a mental institution.
I know that this is my neuroses, colluding with my imagination to manifest my worst fears.
While the film is grounded in reality, it feels as if Sawyer has been plummeted down the rabbit hole. Of course, it is also possible that she's
tumbling down the rabbit hole, Neo.
Way, this film creeps up your spine, gets inside your head, and leaves your nerves rattled.
You get night vision?
Highland Creek Behavioral Health Facility. I am being held here against my will.
Number 8, Overlord.
Now this is a horror action movie, okay?
Yeah.
It's a war film that dives into straight-up horror territory, with American soldiers stumbling across Nazi experiments during World War II. Overlord is not to be confused with the 1975 film of the same name, which also took place on D-Day. Rather, it's more like playing zombies.
That is confusing.
I didn't
know that.
Although producer J.J. Abrams claims that the film is not part of the Cloverfield franchise,
we do.
Overlord has a similar sense of creativity, ambition, and dread. Director
Just
Julius
because
Avery
of
goes
that,
all
people
out with
think
a
it's
ridiculous premise,
part of the...
delivering a modern cult classic.
What's 9 now?
It's one of the most underrated movies of the year, for sure.
Number 7, Suspiria.
I want to see this.
You should have.
I should have.
Not me as much, but you.
A remake of
You
Dario
should have seen it.
Argento's first entry.
Like, when do I
Shame.
have 3 whole hours?
Shame.
Guadagnino's
Shame.
Suspiria is a beautiful descent into madness.
Shame on you.
Dakota Johnson stars as Susie,
Horror
a woman
guy.
who enrolls at a dance academy where a coven is pulling the strings, both figuratively and literally.
You're living with dangerous people.
As with a dream, or better yet a nightmare, it's difficult to describe what exactly happens throughout the twisted tale. What we can describe are the emotions it evokes,
Wow.
which range from unsettling to bizarrely entrancing. Akin to the works of Darren Aronofsky and David Lynch, a film this out there might not be for everyone.
And all of the
For
70s.
adventurous moviegoers, though, it's an experience unlike anything else you'll see all year.
It's all a mess.
Number 6, Revenge.
Now this is the one I'm disappointed for not watching. I'm disappointed in myself.
The horrors our protagonist endures in Revenge feel all too real. A modern take on films like The Last House on the Left and I Spit on Your Grave. The story follows a woman who must survive a hellish desert after being raped and literally pushed to the brink of death. As the title suggests, she also takes out the ones who left her for dead in a gripping tale of revenge. Although this material could have easily verged into exploitation, Coralie Farjat's film never comes off as manipulative. It's an empowering representation of women that doesn't shy away from uncompromising violence. Number 5, Annihilation.
It's pretty high up on this list.
Following 5 military scientists who embark into the unknown, Annihilation starts off as a creature feature reminiscent of The Thing. Nothing is as it seems in this enigmatic environment, however.
And then it becomes
Likewise, the
fucking
film
hard to
itself turns out
follow.
to be much more psychological than initially anticipated.
Very much
This
so.
should not come as a surprise, as Annihilation was directed by Alex Garland of Ex Machina and based on a novel by Jeff Vandermeer, who pioneered a genre known as the New Weird.
Sorry to bother you.
Oh, yeah.
Annihilation gives Garland the freedom to explore a new world that's both intimidating and strangely inviting. Although the film's setting is overrun with physical monsters, it's the inner demons our characters face that truly get under our skin.
It was mutating our environment. It was destroying everything.
Number 4, Mandy. Mandy is like a wild LSD trip that submerges the viewer into a whacked-out state. And if that's not surreal enough for you, the film also stars Nicolas Cage.
We
as
have
most
seen most of these, huh?
Yeah, I've
Cage
seen a
gives
fair
his
few.
best performance in years as Red Miller, drawing comparisons to the most memorable action movie heroes of the 1980s. When his girlfriend Mandy is taken by a cult of hippies and a satanic biker gang, Red sets out on a bloodthirsty quest to exact revenge.
They were weirdo hippie types.
Every shot of Panos Cosmatos' film is a stylish work of art, brilliantly utilizing dark shadows and red lighting to create hell on Earth.
You're a vicious snowflake.
That's right.
Number 3, Halloween.
Don't be negative.
Hello, Michael. I have something.
So
more to say.
I
In a
think
year that brought us
Hereditary
so
is going
many
to be number
game-changing
1.
horror movies, the Halloween sequel would be
Unless
anything to
they
scream about.
flip
While
them
the
around for
1978
audience
original helped
satisfaction or
define the
something.
slasher genre, this franchise
Nah,
has
this
been
would have been number
retooled,
1 then.
rebooted,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
recycled to the point that its glory days should be long gone.
He's waited for me. I've waited for him.
With the return of Jamie Lee Curtis and a fresh perspective,
Old woman
from
Laurie.
record-rooted horror
Yeah,
Green
woo.
Horror, we're finally given a worthy follow-up that embraces its roots without ever feeling stale. Once again retconning much of the established continuity, you fortunately don't need to see the other sequels to follow this chilling, humorous, and well-crafted thrill ride that's equal parts homage and spiritual successor. Number 2, A Quiet Place.
Guess Hereditary is going to be number 1.
Unless
A
they
Quiet
get
Place
really
centers
out
on
there
family
with it.
who
Yeah, it's an
enjoy
honorable
at
mention.
all times,
Yeah.
What?
attracting sound-sensitive
What was number
aliens that
one?
now roam Earth. Every noise in this movie thus overwhelms the audience with anxiety, whether it's the breaking of a glass frame or the playful sound of a children's toy. The film is not only a revelation of sound design, but also a tour de force in visual storytelling. Taking full advantage of the harrowing premise, the filmmakers convey an emotional story through expressive performances, clever foreshadowing, and an effective use of American Sign Language. Becoming a box office hit and critical favorite, few horror films stirred up this much noise in 2018.
Because they got to be quiet.
That's what the movie's about.
Before we unveil our number 1 pick, here are some honorable mentions.
So,
What is this?
I'm not sure.
it appears that the message is forgiveness.
Oh, hey!
I heard this film was nuts.
Yeah. Really?
They got a jump scare. It was famous.
Good atmosphere, for sure. Props to Corin Hardy.
Number 1, Hereditary.
There you go.
The most fundamental quality for any horror movie is to be scary above all else. And no film released this year better fit that criteria than Ari Aster's Hereditary. Without resorting to jump scares or other cheap tactics, this film is petrifying on multiple levels. For starters, it's a psychological mind-bender that tackles grief and mental illness while blurring the lines between reality and insanity. Although it contains some of the most graphic imagery of recent memory, it doesn't take much more than an intense conversation between our main characters to send us into shock.
Don't you ever raise your voice at me! I am your mother!
It all builds to an ending that'll leave you disturbed, haunted, and trying to decipher what the hell just happened.
Hail Payman!
So we're going to show you it right now.
Here's what happened.
Agree with our picks? Other great clips from Watch
Not that hard to understand, right?
Subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.
It's not a bad list. Not a bad list.
It's the only list you could have had for this.
I guess so, yeah, with being satisfying to anybody. I feel like
I'm
there's
like, what
always...
horror movie did they leave out of this list?
Well, there are always a ton that come out every year, and I'm always kicking myself for not having seen, like, a bunch of the smaller
But
ones.
one that people, like, what are some smaller ones that have come out that...
Well, yeah, that's why I couldn't tell you, because I haven't had a very good finger on that pulse, but every year, it's like, when I was working at Blumhouse, I had a much better idea of, like, oh, shit, there are all these horror movies I didn't get to see this year, you know?
Yeah.
And there are often a lot of smaller ones that are great that get overlooked because they don't have the reach. True.
All right, so let's only talk about the ones we haven't seen, because that's where I feel like our commentary would have its most strength.
Really shine.
I'm sorry, I just don't think Upgrade is a horror movie. I don't. I've seen it. Having, like, underlying horror elements does not just doesn't qualify as a horror movie to me. I wouldn't even think that, like, is Upgrade on this list? I just wouldn't think that.
I get where they're coming from. It's like if I saw Upgrade in the horror section of a video store, I would be like, not dead on, but sure, why not? Because it's pulpy, it's gory, there is a body horror element, and there is a sinister vibe to the future. So yeah, while I agree with you ultimately that cyberpunk action thriller is the genre I would put that under, I get how there's horror in it, and for the number 10 pick, I just like this movie enough that I'm like, sure, put it on your list, why not? But yeah, it's not a through and through horror flick.
You know what, John? You're right. When you're right, you're right. And you know what? This time, I gotta give it to you. I say you're right. To me, Upgrade just kind of seems like, because it's under the Blumhouse umbrella, and also with Lee Whannell directing it, that a lot of people were under the impression that it might. But not even the trailer advertises it like a horror movie, you know?
Not with the tone, no, not at all.
I have not seen Unsane, which everyone talks about it being shot on an iPhone, as if that's all he did.
Yep.
Was he
invented that. Fuck like, Tangerine.
They just do it like, we only had an iPhone. Like, yeah. I'm sure they had people with sound and lighting and a cinematographer and everything. Yeah.
I'm sure it was spare, but I'm sure it wasn't just the iPhone.
But that's how people talk about it, as if it was just the iPhone, and that's what makes it so special and how they did it. I see all the footage. They clearly had a whole crew here to make this movie.
Nope, even the score was just GarageBand on the phone.
Yeah.
It just loops. Yeah. This is the best way to make a film.
Overlord, you guys should check out our movie review for that. I was actually genuinely surprised by the actual horror in it. I thought it might just be some schlocky, campy-ass B-movie, which it has its elements of that, but for the most part, I thought it was a very effective horror war movie. To me, it's very underrated, maybe because they put it out after all. There's all this, like, of people online going, I'm so surprised it didn't perform well. I don't know why. It came out like a week after Halloween. That's right when people want to stop watching horror movies.
Yeah. It's been gearing up from August to October.
Well, yeah, once Halloween's done, people are like, let's take a break from horror.
Yeah, weirdly, I thought this could have killed it maybe a little bit earlier or something. Because, yeah, like, I love the way that movie even starts out. The horror is just war before it even becomes anything sci-fi. And I feel like my hope for that movie is that it'll pick up a cult life of some kind, because it's pretty fun.
It probably will, John. Mm-hmm. It probably will. Suspiria, shame on you.
Yeah, I feel ashamed. I watched this movie.
I watched original. I can't wait to watch this. Shame.
I am very anticipatory of it still, even. I've heard a lot of very different things.
It probably would have been better to watch in the theaters than at home.
Very much so, because it's almost 3 hours long, and that's always an easier experience in the theaters than it is at home. But I've heard it's really out there, and it does a lot of its own things, and I feel like even if it's not something that I end up loving, I probably would appreciate it.
My girlfriend watched the movie Revenge. I thought we were supposed to watch that together, baby. You motherfucker.
Interesting.
I guess I couldn't come over one night, and she had a free T-Mobile rental at the Redbox.
Like this was the only movie.
And then she was like, I wanted to watch it, so she watched it. We were actually just talking about it with JT and April the other day, because they loved the movie, and I am like, this is one of those movies, like, I really wish I caught it in the theaters. I know it's directed by a woman, whenever people were saying. It's not this, like, hypersexualized thing.
It's not through the 12-year-old boy scope.
Yeah.
Like, look how cool she is.
Man directed this story. Because I'm kind of sick of that trope of woman gets raped and then suddenly she's badass. But apparently this movie handles it in a different type of way that doesn't make it insulting.
Very, very, very curious.
Yeah.
I've heard of a few mixed things, mostly very positive, and this is like rape revenge is a genre where every single installment, I'm just like, I'm gonna have to take this one case by case.
Annihilation, I'd probably put it a little bit higher on the list. I think it's like one of the better films, but in terms of a horror movie, I think because of how confusing it is, and maybe you're one of the people who's so smart that caught on to every little thing. I think most people were, including ourselves, were towards the end like, what is happening? I don't
What exactly is
we
this?
should go online and see what Alex Garland has to say, you know.
Yeah.
And then knowing what it was about was awesome, but part of that real confusing terrain, I thought, can take away some of the horror, because instead of being scared, I'm more like, what?
I feel like I'm the opposite end of the coin from you, where I'm like, that much sort of what makes it that much more disconcerting for me.
Oh, really?
Yeah, at least in the handling. There are
Yeah.
other movies that have that same reaction.
I mean, I'll give it to them, though, that one of the scariest scenes I've experienced all year does come in the scene of the screaming bear thingy that they tease here. That is one of the scariest scenes I've experienced all year, so I'll give it to them. Mandy, I feel like there's way more of an argument for Mandy to be on this list than Upgrade, because
hence why it's further up.
Mandy, to me, isn't a scary film. It's got its tension and whatever.
It is a nightmare.
I don't think it's scary.
No, I mean, there are moments here and there that are very jarring visually, especially when you have, like, the kidnapping scene with the bikers and all that. Yeah, it's like there are definitely elements of horror filmmaking at hand.
But especially when it shifts gears, it becomes very action.
Yeah, this is another movie where I wouldn't balk if I saw it on the end cap of a horror section, because it's in the stew, but yeah, I don't think it's a spot-on genre label for it.
But it's a great film. We've done reviews for most of these movies. Like the ones we're talking about, we've reviewed on the channel already. Halloween. Weirdly, the one horror movie we haven't talked about.
We didn't even do a review, didn't see it. This is a movie I really want to go back and rewatch. I remember really enjoying it, and I still hold a lot of those feelings, and I feel like movies like this that have an especially high standard to live up to, or some kind of hype to satisfy, you know, it's like we're coming back, we're retconning a lot of the series at large, and it has to be a certain level of great to satisfy everybody, and I feel like there's a certain amount of, like, spell we're all under for the first viewing, so I'm curious to go back for it, but I do think that it deserves a place on this list from where I am now.
I really like this movie a lot. I might even put it on my top 10 list for this year. There was kind of a backlash for that. Like, some audiences really did not care for this movie.
Sure,
because of, like, the humorous tones infused in it and stuff like that, which I think really detracted for a lot of people. But I still think the finale is one of the, not scariest, but one of the most tense experiences I've had all year. That whole finale.
This definitely proves you can still do a very effective and very lucid slasher movie that isn't just, you know, a bunch of silly tropes.
I do think number 2 and 1 are the best horror movies of the year. I mean, I know I haven't seen a couple of them, like Suspiria and whatever, but A Quiet Place was... That made an impact. Did something insanely unique. That's easy to pinpoint, too.
Yeah.
You know, like, easier than Hereditary. Hereditary, I see why people consider that number 1. I see why people love Hereditary the most, because it's arguably the better film. But in terms of pinpointing what makes A Quiet Place so unique, it's so... You can pinpoint it just from watching the trailers.
Oh, yeah.
Sound.
Yeah. The 1-2 punch of A Quiet Place and then Hereditary is like, this is the studio version, and then Hereditary Hereditary is like the gourmet thing.
Yeah.
And Quiet Place was one of the most unique viewing experiences I had all year because it's, I mean, like they said, it's a really well told visual story. It's really thought out for the most part. I mean, when you start picking at some of the logistics of just the setup, sure, you can find holes. Just the execution and the amount of silence and tension and like the weird way it brought the whole audience together was super unique.
They did talk about not wanting, like some people have criticized, like why would she have a baby at this point? and I actually thought about it because that used to be my argument against the movie as well. Well, do they know how to do abortions? You know?
Well, you know, I'm sure they could
know
have.
how to do it.
I'm sure they could have found some condoms. We got to find out the
But
circumstances
that's not
of
even
their
a
pregnancy.
guarantee.
I mean, no, but you could just as easily sell me the fact that like they practiced safe sex in the apocalypse and it worked. I don't know. Yeah, I would need more context.
But there
in
was no
regards to that
scene
baby.
where they said, I want to have a child, let's get pregnant. And everyone kind of treats it that way. And how do we know that it wasn't just an accident?
Yeah, all we know is that in the lapse of time, this happened.
Yeah, exactly. So, I don't know. But yeah, Hereditary. That's a movie that sticks with you. Whether or not you love it or you don't, I think it's a movie that sticks with you. I don't think you could just watch it and be like, eh.
Yeah, even if you don't wind up liking where the movie winds up, I feel like there's just too much that's effective and worth appreciating to walk out of it and just be like, nah, I don't think anything's good about it.
Yeah, there were some real intense moments in there, and it was very jarring. Offered one of the best jump scares of the year. Like,
Jaw dropper, yeah.
yeah, one that like had many a jump scare experiences, but I can't recall the last time other than Hereditary that had a moment where my jaw was just dropped for a significant amount of time.
Same here.
Where I was like, I can't believe that just happened. Yeah.
It's a very visceral, very like you leave that movie feeling like you just ran a mile and got in a really heated argument with somebody.
And more so than A Quiet Place, I totally understand why there's an uproar against the fact that this movie has received 0 Golden Globe nominations.
Yeah, I mean at least for Toni Collette.
I think cinematography and Collette.
Yeah, definitely.
Both of those. Like it's insanely surprising to. I mean, I know they don't do cinematography at Golden Globes, but for Toni Collette especially, that's a shocker.
Yeah, I mean, you know, there are a million ways to look at snubs, and there are inevitably just more movies than you can nominate every year. But this, of all the things this year, perhaps this feels like the most of a flat out snub. Just like, did you not see this movie?
Yeah,
did you miss that performance? Did you not catch the way that she led the whole film?
Yeah.
Like, holy shit.
But yeah, this is a good list. One of WatchMojo's least divisive lists.
It was a little shaky there at the outset, but you tied it together.
Yeah. Eric Horseman, thanks so much for requesting this, buddy. I know lately you've been going through a really rough time, and I can't imagine that the holidays are making it any easier. The shitty part when you're going through a rough time is when it's supposed to be a time of just so much love and happiness. And so I can really identify with that. I'm sorry you're currently having some rough patches, but know that people out there like myself and John, do you love him?
I love you, Eric Horseman.
You better.
I love you so much.
I definitely love you. We have long exchanges on Patreon.
I think about you all the time.
Whoa, John, just be genuine.
I'm sorry. I think about you sometimes.
Don't be a dick.
I've thought about you a few times. Usually when I see your name on the patron page and then we start talking about something in the comments.
But I love you because we talk so much and I really care about you and I want you to feel better, buddy. For this Christmas, I'm going to peer pressure you into finally getting that Real Rejects tattoo. If you don't get it, I'm blocking you on our Patreon page. You better get it soon. And by the way, any money you throw down to get that tattoo, do not take it out of your pledge for the month
very important
of December, you know. In fact, if you want to just take that money for the tattoo and put it to increase the pledge, that's an option. I'm not saying you have to.
Just draw on yourself.
You could just do that.
Shop minimum.
Stay with Patreon. I love you. Subscribe to The Real Rejects. Click that notification bell. Check us out on Patreon. TV show reactions, Q&As. John does music video coverage. I show my butt. Bye.